Good morning, almost good afternoon, everybody. What a beautiful day it is outside again today. Sitting here in our little enclave in our backyard and enjoying the weather before it gets cold again. A thought of the day, a Dvar Torah. So in this week's Torah portion, Parshas Emor, we learn about the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, which takes place in the 49 days between Pesach and Shavuot. And the Torah tells us, and I preface it with the words of the Torah first, Sfartem lachem imacharas haShabbos, and you should count for yourself on the second day of the holiday, Sheva Shabbosais Tmimis Tiyena, 7 complete weeks, Chamish, you should count Chamishim Yoim, 50 days. That means till the 50th day. And therefore, we count 49 days of the Omer. In the Talmud, there's a big argument. And Abaye says that we have to count the days and the weeks. Why the days and the weeks? He says, because in one place the Torah says, Shiva Shavuot Tispar Lacha. In Deuteronomy, the Torah says you should count 7 weeks. And over here it says up to 50 days. So sometimes the Torah says days, sometimes weeks, so we count both. So for example, on the 7th day you would count, today is 1 week to the Omer, which is 7 days. And on the 8th day you would count, today is 1 week and 1 day, which is 8 days. The question, of course, arises, what's the point of counting both? I mean, what's the significance of knowing that today is 9 days to the Omer, which is a week and 2 days? Why don't we just say it's 9 days, and whoever wants to know the weeks will do the math, and whoever wants to, or we could say the opposite, say the weeks. Say today is 1 week and 2 days, and it doesn't take a mathematician genius to find out that that is a week, that is 9 days. You know what they say? They say there's 3 kinds of people. Those who can count and those who can't count. But for the rest of us, we can figure out, if you say weeks, you count days. If you say days, you count weeks. Why does the Torah have to tell us that we need to do both? What's the significance? So I want to share with you a psychological explanation and a historical one. But they're long, so I'm going to split it into 2 days. Today we'll share the psychological one, and then tomorrow we'll do a short review and we'll share the historical one. This is from a talk that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1951, 69 years ago on Lag BaOmer. Some of you may know, and you might have heard from me in other talks at other times that we studied, that the Zohar and Hasidic teachings speak about 7 core emotions and expressions of the human soul. The first is chesed, which is kindness, love. The second is gvura, which is restraint, which is boundaries. The third is tiferet, which is empathy, beauty. The fourth is netzach, which is victory, ambition. The fifth is hoid, which is humility, which is gratitude, which is recognizing mistakes, being able to say I'm sorry. The sixth is yesod, which is bonding, communicating. And the 7th is malchus, which is leadership, selflessness. And Chassidus explains that each one of us has these 7 core expressions of our soul. And that's why we count the Omer, because during the Omer, the 49 days between when we got the Torah, between when we left Egypt, when we got the Torah, God wants us to refine these 7 core ambitions, so to speak, or these 7 core emotions of the human person, of the human psyche. But when it comes to these things, there's 2 types of expression. There's the weeks, and there's the days. What does that mean? So there's the weeks. There's the general way this expresses. For example, on week 1, we try to figure out, do I know how to love? Do I know how to be loved? On the second week, we try to go, do I know how to set boundaries? Do I know how to restrain myself when needed? On the third week, we try to focus on empathy. Do I know how to be empathetic to someone else? Do I know how to listen to someone else on their terms, not my terms? In the fourth week, try to speak if we're able to be victorious in the face of adversity. Are we able to stand up and be strong? In the fifth week, we focus on, are we able to have gratitude, to appreciate the things in life, to be able to have humility, to be able to seek forgiveness when we make a mistake. In the sixth week, we try to figure out if we know how to communicate with others, how to bond, how to build our relationships. And in the seventh week, we try to find within ourselves the sense of leadership. Leadership requires selflessness, where we're able to give up on ourselves and yet be a leader, be strong, and be there for others in a sense of leader. So there's the week, the way we count the weeks. Sometimes a person tries to deal with a core issue he has, and he's able to resolve it and to become a better human being. For example, you find when it comes to addictions, you have people that go to therapy and on for their addictions, and some people go for their whole life to therapy. But then there are some people that go to therapy for their addiction or deal with it, and they overcome it literally in a sense where they don't have that problem anymore. It's like almost like smoking. Someone smokes, and he smokes and he smokes, and then he stops smoking, but he's struggling the whole time. He has the urge. He never forgets, he never stops missing that cigarette. But then there's someone, although it's rarely, who stops smoking and he doesn't even have an urge for it anymore. Done. When I was a young 20-year-old, I smoked for 6 months of my life, and then I stopped. I haven't touched a cigarette since. I don't have an urge for it. Maybe you say I wasn't addicted, or I was, but it's almost in a sense like a little baby. You toilet train them, you try it, and then it comes the moment when you stop toilet training them. They don't need a diaper anymore because they don't have that issue anymore. But that's very seldom. How often do you have a person that's able to deal with a problem, with a challenge, psychological, emotional, that they totally overcome? It's not easy. But then there's the day count. What's the day count? You see, the week count is the emotion. The day count is how it expresses itself in our lives. In every day-to-day life, there's the way love expresses itself, there's the way restraint expresses itself, there's the way empathy expresses itself in the way we live our life, not just at the core of our emotion, but the way we live our life. And in that sense, even the one who can't fix the week could try to work on the day. Every single one of us has that opportunity. Imagine you're standing by a red light, okay? You're in your car, you're at the wheel, you're standing by a red light, and someone in the back is screaming, take the light, take the light, take the light, take the light. And you're holding onto the wheel for your dear life, and you don't move. You know that you're not taking the light. Why? Because you know that the person screaming at you is something foreign. It's not you, it's someone else. It's a bad idea. So you know you're in control of the wheel, you have the wheel, and you ain't budging because you know what you have to do. But imagine if that screaming coming from the back, if it came from within you, if you thought it was the right thing, if suddenly your moral compass said, yeah, do that, you know how much harder it would be? But yet at the same point, you're able to, at the end of the day, you hold the wheel and you could control it. So the weeks represents someone who totally transforms himself and is able to come to a point where he doesn't struggle with that challenge anymore. But to most of us, that doesn't happen. We deal with it every day. We have to count the days. We have to deal with how we express it in our day-to-day life. You know, Winston Churchill in his biography, he writes about it. He suffered tremendously from depression. But he says that he envisioned it and he imagined that the depression was this black dog that always walked with him and was always near him. But it wasn't who he was. And that's how he tried to overcome his depression. It was there. But it wasn't who he was. It didn't have to define him. And that's really what Chassidus explains us. Anyone that studied Chassidus, and I recommend you do if you haven't, explains us that thought is a garment of the soul. What's the difference between a garment and the soul itself? Clothing, you change. Today I'm wearing this suit and shirt. Yesterday I was wearing a different suit and shirt. Today you wear a dress, tomorrow you change it. Clothing is something you could change. But the soul, you can't change. So Chassidus teaches us at the depth of who we are, that we are able to control our thoughts. Our thoughts are clothing, and clothing you could change. It's the soul that you can't. And therefore we count the days and the weeks, because for most people, you need days. You see, we have to count the weeks because we always have to yearn and hope to possibly be able to overcome and change our whole way where we don't struggle with something. But for most of us, it's not going to happen. It's something too hard to deal with. We have the days. The Torah teaches us that yes, you could control how you act, even if you have an urge. You could seclude it. You could quarantine it. You could recognize that that's not you. That's not who you really are. It's only clothing. And you're not going to let that control how you act. Imagine you're driving home from work one day and you get a text from your wife, and your wife says, "Hey, when are you going to be home already?" And you get so angry. You know, she doesn't appreciate how I work, how hard I work for the family to earn a living, and how long it takes me in every business meeting I have and the struggles I have. All she wants to know is when I'm going to be home. And then for a moment you say, 1 second, where is this coming from? Maybe because my mother shouted at me. Maybe because my teacher shouted at me. All my wife is instantly asking is, when am I going to be home? Maybe she misses me. Maybe she wants me to be there by the beautiful dinner she prepared for me and my family. She loves me. And suddenly you're able to quarantine that urge. It might still be there. It might come into your thought. But you don't let it control who you are and how you're going to respond. That's the difference between the days and the weeks. The Torah obliges us. The Torah tells you, count the weeks. You always have to strive and yearn to overcome your challenges, to totally change who you are. If it comes to love, to empathy, to restraint, to the sense of victory, of being able to overcome adversity, if it comes to the sense of humility, of gratitude, you have to always count the weeks. But you also have to count the days, because for most of us, we're never going to come to a moment, to a time in our life where we're able to totally only count the weeks. We're always going to be counting days where every day is a victory. A day that came by and I overcame an urge, and I overcame a challenge, and I overcame a struggle, and I overcame my depression. You won that day. You counted the days. You might not count the weeks, but you counted the days. You know, 5 years ago, on I think May 23rd, 2015, Josh Nash, one of the greatest Nobel Prize winners who literally set the foundations for game theory as we know it today, how to make game decisions, passed away, him and his wife, Alicia. He was born in 1927, I think, if I remember correctly. And Josh Nash immediately became known as a genius. Someone who really thought out the box and was able to literally, through his time in Princeton and later at MIT, become world-renowned in his idea of game theory. But then he met his wife, Alicia, there. And I think in 1957, they married. And he continued doing his work. And then, in the early 1960s, something crazy happened. Josh started hearing these voices. And he accused some professor of going into his office and trying to steal his ideas. And then he decided that everyone who wore a red tie was part of the Communist Party and wanted to hurt him. And he started writing letters to embassies in Washington and accusing people of things. When he was offered a prestigious chair at the University of Chicago, he didn't want to take it because he's convinced that he was going to become the president of Antarctica. That's how much he struggled. And it finally came to the worst part, where I think it was in 1959, he was giving a speech at Columbia University, and the guy started speaking like a madman. And although he was also speaking about game theory, he went totally off his rockers. And the other professors realized this, and he was quickly taken to the hospital where he was diagnosed with being paranoid schizophrenia. And he suffered tremendously. He stayed in the hospital for many years, I think from 1959 maybe to 1963. And he was on medications and he struggled very hardly. I mean, it all came unfortunately to Hest when his wife, Alicia, divorced him. She couldn't deal with it anymore. In 1963, she divorced him, but she still supported him throughout it all and was his greatest backer. And then in 1970, when he left the hospital for the last time, his wife actually let him into the house as a boarder where she helped him and took care of him. And slowly he learned how to deal with his struggles and with his schizophrenia, and he went on to win the Nobel Prize in 1994, and in 2001 he won another prize, and I think it was maybe it was MIT, I don't remember. One of the universities he was at, they let him come back and teach. And in 2001, his sweetheart, Alicia, decided to marry him again. After all the years that she supported him, she married him again. So there's the book that came out, his biography, A Beautiful Mind, and then the movie, A Beautiful Mind, that came out too. And in there, there's a very powerful scene. And it's 1994. And he's winning his Nobel Prize. And he says the most beautiful words, which can't even get anyone who watches it not to shed a tear. And I'm going to read, if I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says, I've always believed in, this is the scene in the film, A Beautiful Mind. He says, I've always believed in numbers and equation and logic that led to reason. But after a lifetime of such pursuit, I ask, what truly is logic? Who decides reason? My quest has taken me through the physical, the metaphysical, the delusional, and back. And I made the most important discovery of my career, the most important discovery of my life. It is only in the mysterious equation of love that any logic or reasons can be found. I am only here tonight because of you. He points to Alicia. You are the reason I am. You are all my reasons. Thank you. Imagine a woman who stood with him through all the struggles and challenges. The place erupted in cheers and a standing ovation. And people were crying and cheering for him. And as he goes off and he's holding his wife's hand, suddenly all his thoughts come back to him. He sees all those communists who are fighting him and wanted to hurt him. All the people who are cheering are suddenly the people that wanted to hurt him. And his eyes roll back and he's in a different world. And his wife, Alicia, recognizes him, realizes this, and looks at him and says to him, Josh, what's going on? Is everything okay? And he looks at her and he says, everything's okay. And you see the man who's struggling with the world of his mind, yet learns how to quarantine it and recognize that that's not him, and looks at his wife and realizes that everything is okay. It's one of the most powerful parts of the movie, where you see the conflict between a man who struggled, a hero, a man who his whole life struggled with hell and back, and yet was able to overcome it, to win a Nobel Prize, and to be able to learn how to live with the struggle. He didn't conquer the weeks, but he conquered the days. In 2015, on May 23rd, he was coming back from a trip to Norway, where he went to meet the king of Norway, where he won another prize. And he set up a driver that would bring them back from the airport to his house. But the driver never showed up, so him and his wife got into a taxi, and on the way going home, the driver of the cab lost control of the car and spun out of control. And him and his wife, him 86 and Alicia 80, flew out of the car and died immediately. talk about a life of a hero, someone who knew hell and back, someone who dealt with the struggles, yet learned how to somehow live with it and overcome it. We all have in a microcosm in our own life. We have struggles, we have things we deal with. If it's empathy, if it's love, if it's creating boundaries with those we love, if it's being able to show gratitude or being able to overcome adversity. We all have these struggles. The question is how we deal with it. The question is, are we able to recognize that we yearn and we strive to overcome the weeks? We yearn and we strive to count the weeks. We want to overcome our challenge. We want to chase it away. We want to totally change the clothing we wear. But then we also count the days because we recognize that till that time might come, which may never be. Not all of us are capable of that. We learn to deal with the struggle, with the challenge, and to count every day, and to just learn that that's the driver in the back seat that's telling me to take the red light is not who I am. That person who's telling me to get angry at my spouse and scream at my child and be upset at the person I love is something foreign for me, and I could control that. Every day we count Hayom Sheva Yomim Laim Hashem Shavua Echad. Today is 7 days to the Omer. It's not just weeks, it's days. And that's what the Rebbe said in 1951, taking us back 69 years. The genius of the way the Rebbe taught us how to live our life, how to deal with the struggles and the challenges we have, and overcome them in the way we express ourselves day to day. Tomorrow, I hope to speak about the same concept of days and weeks in a historical perspective of how the Jewish people have been throughout the ages and the days and the weeks. We'll do a little review of today and then we'll go on to tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Go out there. Don't be scared of your challenges, of your struggles. Count the days. Know that it's dear, but know that it doesn't control who you're going to be. It doesn't control the man or woman you could become and you should become and you should act on every day. It's only the clothing, but not the soul. Yom Tov, good day.